There are 4 phases to your dreadlock extensions. Your wavy dreads are going to go through a process of maturing. Maturing is when we take them from the point of what they are brand new, which is more of a loose hair, to getting to the place where they are a fully matured lock, where they have locked up together. They actually start to look like a dreadlock, but they keep their wave in the process. And so I'm going to tell you about those processes, the different phases, and how they work. These phases are actually something I came up with after I had so many people asking me questions about their dreads and like what they were doing. They're trying to explain to me over comments and messages of like, oh no, I have this like new set of dreads, and like 2 weeks ago they were like pretty and wavy and like hair, and now they're like knotted and I don't know how to take care of them. I don't know what to do. And then I had to figure out, first of all, at what point they were in their dreads, like how much they had moved around in them, how much they had started to knot or tangle, kind of figure out what phase they were at before I actually had language for the phases, just via conversation. And so then I had to explain to them how to care for them in that phase, because it's a little bit different based off what phase you are in. Now the cool thing is once you get through the 4 phases, they don't like repeat again. They go through it once, they get to the point where they are matured like these, and then they are super duper easy. So if you follow the protocol and the system for the phases, that is how you're going to get through them the fastest and the easiest, and how you're going to have the easiest time caring for them and getting them to a place where they are like easy peasy on a daily basis. And sometimes, some days, I don't even have to take care of this side at least. This side I've worn for months on end, and this side with these colors are new. I've had them in 2 weeks. They're in a completely different phase. So it's perfect for me to be able to show you guys here. So let's talk about what these 4 phases are. Phase number 1, this puppy is going to last 1 to 2 weeks. This is basically going to be the beginning process of your wavy dreadlocks. When they come to you, they are going to be more like hair, right? They are dreaded at the top. Let me show you. They're dreaded at the top here. We have about a 10-inch dread, which is longer than most, about twice the amount. So you have a lot of space to actually dread onto. And then the end of it is loose hair, right? That's wavy. And so when people get them, they're like, this is so fun. I feel like a mermaid. That's why we call this the mermaid phase. And it's so pretty. But over time, they can get really knotted. One way they start to knot a lot for me personally is right under the back of my neck right here. It will rub on my shirt, my sweater. When I go to work out, like I'm sweating, and I wear them literally like this to work out down, or half of them down. And so they're moving, and that's where they begin to knot up. And if you don't know how to care for them, you're like, oh crap, they're ruined. So mermaid phases are going to start off like this 1 to 2 weeks. For me, it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm more active and doing my normal like 4 workouts or so a week, I'm going to hit to phase 2 in about 7 days time. For some people, it takes about 2 weeks. So this is your first phase. When you are in this phase, what you're going to want to do is, first of all, you're going to use your cooling veil on your scalp every single morning and night, and as needed. If you are having lots of itching, especially if this is your first time wearing dreads, your scalp has not adjusted to the level of oils it needs to produce in order to keep up with the moisture. So you're going to want to use cooling veil, have it on hand to spray your scalp, and it will feel magical, right? And then you're going to use that probably twice a day at least. And then what you're going to do morning and evening is you are going to use Divinity Crown Nectar, or just a regular Crown Nectar. And there as well, we have one that's unscented. And so you're going to use one of those 2 on there. And so what you're going to do is literally take a pump in your hand, and then you are going to go through and run it through each dread. So you will take the cap off, put a squirt in, rub it around, and you're going to go through them one by one, pulling it down. I actually pull it down, and then I usually toss it over my head like this, dragging my hand down it. This is going to separate the dreads from one another because they will get tangly. In fact, let me show you on a set of dreads that's not as matured so you can actually see how some tangles happen. So you can see these are stuck together, right? So you're going to go through and run the Crown Nectar down one by one and separate them. I usually do half of my head, and then I will go through and put it in a ponytail and do the other half. So individually go through them, and I did not go through them individually this morning. I'm being honest. Just like this. And what this is going to do is this is going to actually put a layer of the Crown Nectar on it to help, first of all, moisturize the dread. It's also going to help those little stray pieces that are coming off as it gets frizzy. I don't know if you can't really see that, but there's like, I'm only a piece of hair here, right, that's coming off. It's going to help take that and make it grab back onto the dread. Eventually, you will start to look at your dreads, and you will see in between each of the waves, you'll start to have like a little knot happening, and that's them actually dreading up. So that's a process that you want to start, and when that starts happening, that's when they're going to get really, really easy. So you're going to begin doing this, and it's going to, at this point for phase 1, they're still going to be pretty soft and pretty much like hair. And then when you start to notice a lot of knotting, that's when we're headed into phase 2, the Whispering Tangles phase. Whispering Tangles phase, this is probably about, mine is kind of in between this and the Freeform Tangles phase, which is the next one, but Whispering Tangles phase usually lasts 3 to 4 weeks, somewhere in that range. This is honestly the most difficult phase, is this phase 2. It's when they are getting kind of knotted, they're sticking together a lot more, they're a little bit more difficult to separate each morning, which is why I recommend sleeping in a bonnet at least through phase 2 until you get to phase 3. It's going to make it a lot better, especially if you move around when you sleep, but they're still going to be sticking together. So this is going to be a phase where there's going to be a lot of texture happening. You're going to notice there's going to be a little bit more firmness happening. It's going to have a little bit more of a grip to the feeling of the actual hair, and not so much like the super softness that you have in the mermaid phase. That is a good thing, because that means you're heading towards having them be like dreadlocks. And if you're using Crown Nectar on them daily, you're following the same steps of separating them one by one. As you go through like this phase here, it's going to help make sure that they're locking up better, not sticking together as much. And I promise you, after you get through the Whispering Tangles phase, you're gonna be like, okay, it's so much better. Phase number 3. This one's gonna last about 6 to 8 weeks. Now you may be thinking, Berlin, how long am I leaving my dreadlocks in for with these phases? Well, here's the thing. When I'm talking about the weeks that these are lasting, this is going to be total wear time. So if you put in a set of dreads and you wear them for 4 weeks, you're only going to get into that phase 2 in that 4 weeks time. Then say you take a week break, you put them back in, you are going to probably be then at the end of the phase 2 going into phase 3. You'll probably be in phase 3 for a whole month of wear time, and then the third time you install them is when you hit that final phase in them. So this is like consecutive over time, the amount of time it takes to actually get them to be fully dreaded and get them through the maturing process. So we are in the Freeform Tangles phase. This is going to last 6 to 8 weeks for most people. Some people, like I said, it's going to have some variations, but 6 to 8 weeks is the average. This is when they're getting so much easier. They're getting to the place where they're still grabbing on a little bit, right? There's still a little bit of tangles and stuff happening there, but overall, they're a lot easier. You may be able to go through and take your Crown Nectar, where you are just going through and maybe 3 to 4 days a week you're doing individual separation, but if you have a day where you wake up and you're in a hurry, you can actually take them, put some Crown Nectar in your hands, and just kind of do some larger chunks where you're grabbing sections like this and going over it, so it's still being moisturized, it's still getting some slickness on there to help make sure that they are locking to themselves individually rather than becoming like one giant balled up dreadlock. And so you can do it kind of in larger sections like this and be okay and not worry about actually frizzing them out a ton. And so you want to continue to use that Crown Nectar to support this process as we lock up and as they are evolving into their dreadlocks. You will notice that more texture is beginning to happen, right? There's a little bit more of a firmness to them. They're becoming a little bit more solid because they are locking together and don't have these free pieces that are kind of about and being frizzy. But this is a phase when they are getting a ton more simple, and they are about to go into the Wildcrafted dread phase, which is phase number 4. Phase 4, the Wildcrafted dread phase. This is when they are so easy. They're so easy. You are at the pinnacle of your dreadlock phase, and this is when they are so magical and it's so dang easy. You're still using Crown Nectar on them. You may still need to use cooling veil, but not as much, right? Depending on what's happening, what the weather's like, honestly, like right now in this moment, it's smack dab in the middle of summer here in Texas, and compared to the last install, right, when it went from like high 80s, low 90s degrees to like 103, I need cooling veil more. It's hot and it's dry here, right? My scalp needs more moisture. But as for Crown Nectar, I can go through and I still put out the oil on them once a day. But I can go through and do large chunks if I want to. I can go like this and just kind of put it on, rub it across the top of my head if I want to do that. I will still go through and oftentimes maybe once a week or so and individually separate each of them, because there still is some, like there's some, the occasional like loose hair that kind of escapes and kind of grabs onto other dreads. And I also have this new set that's still in phase 2 over here that kind of looses a little bit of hairs that grab onto this side. But it becomes so much easier. This is the time when it's nice, when it's super easy to like go swimming, for motorcycle rides, go adventuring, hiking, things like that, and not worry about them tangling as much and things like the wind, because they are super easy. They're dreaded up. They are each their individual own unit, and they are super, super nice, super simple. And this is the point when we have legit dreads.